Hello, welcome to another episode of Ruse Cues. This one is with my grandparents. Prior to this conversation, I'd actually had one with my grandpa on his own. So you'll hear me mention talking about like the last time we talked, and that's just a different conversation that I had with him one on one. I figured this one would be better to share because it's a little bit longer and features the both of them. Currently, they're retired, living just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. In this talk, we cover a number of topics, including sobriety, which is something that is very important to them. They both lead sober lives, and also talk about just kind of how to lead a more balanced life and how they have been able to find peace over the last number of years. Quick note, about 18 months ago, my grandpa was unfortunately diagnosed with lung cancer. And so if you hear us talking about a diagnosis, that's what we're referring to. It's a really good talk in my opinion, and I hope you like it. Without further ado, here's my talk with my grandpa Danny and my grandma Vicky.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of chat. Are you guys both down to talk and share some stories?
Can.
Cool. Yeah, right on. Well, I just kind of wanted to start with where we left off last time, and also just if you guys can, for the audio's sake, whenever you are talking, just try to have the audio a little closer to you,
Okay.
so I can record better. But I guess I want to start with Grandpa. I kind of wanted to talk to both you guys about growing up and kind of your early stages of partying and all that, because last time, Grandpa, I remember you said that drinking, like no matter what, like when you were a teenager, like just made you feel like 10 feet tall, and you felt very charismatic, and you think it had to do with how out of place you felt drinking. And I just wanted to know why you think you felt out of place and didn't feel like you fit in as a youth.
Um, I don't know, to tell you honest God truth. I was raised in a fairly big family and easily got lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Um, I did become one of my dad's favorite punching bags, and that's not fun.
In
By the
particular,
time,
do you was it more so than your other siblings?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
um, by the time I was 12, 13, well, he used to be pretty rough with my mom, and
Yeah.
I wasn't real comfortable with that. So I would get in the way, and it didn't take him long to knock me down when I was 12, 13, and then he'd go after my mom. But eventually I got a little bit bigger, and I did start hitting him back. But um, I think one of the things that was really kind of crazy, I was born in December, so I started school late. And I think in first grade, or I skipped out of second grade halfway through into third grade. Right about that time, somewhere when I was 7 or 8 or 9, I
Hmm.
got sent to a shrink because they wanted to know why I was a pain in the ass in school and always got my work done fast and bothered the other kids who were struggling to get their work done. And I was tested for my IQ. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty high. I was reading, when I was like 3.5, 4 years old,
Yeah.
doing
Wow.
numbers, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to like brag that I'm the most intelligent guy in
No.
the world, but I didn't fit because I couldn't relate to kids who struggled with stuff. I didn't have to do a lot of homework. Um, I was small, very small. So I was always one of the last people picked when they were doing dodgeball or baseball. And I wasn't comfortable with physical activity because I was so tiny, got knocked down a lot, and it kind of hurts. And I got picked on a lot, even into high school, um, just for being different. I could sit in class and read storybooks behind my book and still get straight A's on my classes till I hit about 14, 15 years old. And I just didn't feel comfortable in the world, is basically what the situation was. I do think I started drinking right around the age of 13, maybe a little earlier.
Okay.
My dad used to go up to the Napa Valley and buy a couple, 3 cases of wine, and he always had booze up in the cabinet.
Yeah.
And when he ran out or when he was low, I could always go to the grocery store and pinch some off the shelf.
Yeah.
And I got pretty good at that. So people loved me at least for that part, because I'd go into the store, swipe a bottle, we'd drink it, and then they'd send me back in to get more.
Yeah.
And
You were the mule?
yeah, pretty much.
No.
And for me, learning how to drink was a difficult process. I drank and I got sick as a dog, always, for a long time. But I was persistent, and I kept drinking until I could make it stay down.
Yeah.
But I was real happy when dope came along, because it was a lot easier to handle. I did have a lot of trouble with it in the beginning, but it was easier to get a handle on.
Uh-huh.
And probably by the time I was 15 years old, I was pretty much headed into being a daily user, because when I was drinking or using, I could fit in. I could talk to people. The girls all loved me. I danced absolutely fantastically. I made John Travolta look like a stumble bum, and it just worked out better for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure what all the stuff was about not fitting in. I know that a semi-violent childhood was an uncomfortable situation for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So from 15 to the end of high school, what does that look like? Are your academics still going okay? What are your extracurricular activities? Like what are you doing after school on weekends and stuff?
My, my freshman year of high school was pretty good. I was still pretty much little goody two shoes. I went to a Catholic all boys high school, and I learned quite a bit of stuff that was pretty interesting. But in my sophomore year of high school, I'm pretty sure it was a sophomore year, we had a Christmas break and went on a ski trip to Squaw Valley. And I remember some guy coming up to me and saying, "You don't look like you're doing too well. Try this, it'll make you feel better." So I smoked some dope and washed it down with some scotch, and things were good again. And we
Yeah.
didn't really get to do too much skiing on that trip, because it snowed the whole time, about 10 or 11 feet the 3 or 4 days we were up there. So we were doing stupid shit like jumping out of a 3rd or 4th story window into the snowbank outside.
Jeez.
And, I just felt like I was part of the crowd there.
Right.
But I had started making using and drinking a high priority in my life. And my academics went down real fast. And I was actually not invited to come back to the school at the end of my junior year, because I was not going to class a lot. And they were a little bit more authoritarian than public schools. And I was in trouble all the time. And the vice principal used to make us copy out columns out of the telephone book for detention. And I'm a brilliant guy, so instead of making money by playing cards and cheating a little bit, I copied a lot of telephone columns, and I gave them to other people, or I sold them to other people, and that also made me kind of popular. So I'd sit in class and I'd be copying out telephone columns, not paying any attention to the shit going on, except for one class. It was a music class. It was great.
Oh yeah.
I remember when the Schilling, I think his name, Brother Schilling, did a Janis Joplin thing.
Oh
It
wow.
was really neat, and he did a lot of blues stuff.
That's pretty
But
cool.
I wasn't invited to come back, and when I wasn't invited to come back, I went to a public high school for a while. And the one thing I remember about that was my high school counselor thought I should become a pharmacist. And I thought that was a good idea. So I quit school, loaded up the trunk of my car with reds and whites, black beauties and reds, and I went to the Ford plant and sold drugs out of the trunk of my car. But those shift workers needed something to get through the shift and then something to get through home. And, I ended up pretty much dropping all the way out. I don't think it was too many months into my senior year. And
No.
I just kind of did rotten shit. I did get a job, and that was kind of interesting because it was very busy and very intense. But I got in a lot of trouble with the cops because I got thrown out of my house by my dad. And
Okay.
I was living in an apartment for a while, but they found out I was underage and didn't want me to be on the lease. And plus, the people I were living with were more annoying than me. So I was living in my car,
Okay.
and I got in trouble, and they told me I needed to join the service or go to California Youth Authority until I turned 21. And I
Mm.
remember about that time, this guy that lived up the street from me that I used to smoke with all the time, he came home because he'd gone in the Air Force. And he was a big, giant guy. We call him Fat Wally. He did things like ate avocado toast with bacon and cheese on it. But he had come back from, he was in basic training for several extra months. Turns out he was on the Fat Boy program. He came home and he was all slimmed down.
Yeah.
So we were up there visiting, and we got loaded and drank a little bit of beer. And he said, I'm going to go down and chew my recruiter out. So I went down there with him. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in a chair taking a aptitude test. And this was in September, I think, or end of August.
Yeah.
In the beginning part of September, they accepted me into the Air Force. And I got inducted on the 21st and flew to Lackland Air Force Base. It was kind of good to have a job like that, although there were some risks with having it, especially if you're in the service and doing a lot of drugs and alcohol. But I managed to survive. In my second hitch, I took a short out and then I re-enlisted for 6 years because they gave us money. I got busted twice, once in February, once in May. In February, the security police busted me, so they fucked it up. But cops didn't because I was off base. And they didn't screw it up. I ended up going to jail overnight till I could get Vicky to bounce a check for me.
Oh, jeez.
And I think that was in May. And I got to talk to my first sergeant. And he said, you stupid fucker, you got your orders for staff sergeant, but I'm redlining, which means I wasn't going to get it.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
So we had a screaming match over his desk. And the commander of my unit, some major, came in there. And he chewed my ass up one side and down the other about talking to the first shirt that way. And so I said, well, fuck you. Keep my damn stripe and let me the fuck out of this shit. I had friends that were going to the doctors and saying they were nuts and crazy and getting out. I
Yeah.
go to the doctor and they say, oh, too bad. You'll live through it. But finally, in the end of December of 78, I got a really neat lawyer. He hated the Air Force because he got drafted into the legal corps. He got me an out on an administrative discharge, which I didn't realize what a favor he was doing for me. And I got out on the 22nd of December. And when I was out processing, everybody was having their Christmas parties and stuff. I'd go in there and hop over the doggone counter and walk back there and got all my paperwork done. I got out. And then it got crazier, but we stuck around for a little while. I didn't do real well with jobs. Omaha in January with being a transmission repair and removal guy, pulling them out with ice on them and having that shit just drip down on you.
Oh, jeez.
So we packed up, me and Vicky and the kids, and moved to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate that I had worked there at the Joint Use Field as an Air Force observer at a civilian facility. And the guy who ran the shop loved me. So he helped me get into the National Weather Service.
Awesome.
And that lasted for quite a while. I actually made it all the way till I was about 32 when we were living in Pocatello, Idaho.
Uh-huh.
And I remember Vicki and I were out on New Year's Eve of 1985. And when the night was over, I drove her home and pushed her out of the car. And I went up and sat in the hills outside of Pocatello and watched the sun come up that morning. And I said, I can't fucking live this way anymore. My life is too crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, and I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So finally, in May of that year, I got checked into a treatment facility.
That was the catalyst.
Well, pretty much. It was the sickest treatment center in the world. And I still got involved and did the best I could, but I didn't do everything right. And so for 13 and a half years or so, I did okay, but not great. I was still a craphead. Untreated alcoholism is not a good place to be. You're just a fucking dry drunk, and it's a horrible place because I didn't have all the benefits and still had a lot of the uncomfortableness.
Right.
So I went back out in Alaska in 2001, drank for a couple of years, and I finally had an opportunity to come back in up there in Alaska in 2003. I had a great sponsor, great bunch of people around me, and I managed to keep it together pretty well there. So
right on.
that's kind of it in a nutshell, probably a little longer than you wanted. But,
No, perfect.
And I'm 100% sure that I qualify as one of those people who is allergic to alcohol.
Yep.
I have a physical allergy and a mental compulsion. So I do better if I don't drink, and I'm okay with that most of the time. Really, really a lot more now.
That's great.
And I was doing a lot of stuff to keep my sobriety good and solid and helping people and doing service work for the fellowship until I got sick.
Right.
And I've had to back off a little bit, but hopefully this new stuff will put me in shape again and I can get back busy with that. But
yeah,
I love it. It does a lot for me.
Right on.
You know, AA isn't a treatment center. It isn't a financial assistance program. It isn't a lot of things, but it isn't religious. But what it is I get to determine what works for me and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And, I still have a good sponsor, and I work with him. He's really kind of interesting because he sold chemo drugs for his living. I didn't know it.
What?
Helped me out, so he's been able to really help me a lot through this chemo.
That's great.
And,
That's great.
You know, I'm just kind of there, and that's what the deal is.
Yeah. Right on. Well, I'm glad he's helping. I hope you can get back to all the activities I know you like being a part of soon.
Yeah, well, this new drug has a fairly good reputation, and I'm trying to manage my expectations, but I'll be okay if
Definitely.
it works.
Yeah.
Really good.
I like to hear it. Well, I definitely want to break down the book and the 12 steps and stuff a little more. But first, Grandma, I was kind of curious with you because, Grandpa obviously grew up West Coast, California. You definitely had a different experience growing up, and I'm just kind of curious how you came into drinking and your experience with substances and all of that, and how that started in your life, whether it be childhood or teenage years or
Well, it pretty much started in my teenage years, but I didn't look at it until after I got into the program, after we got married and Grandpa got clean and I started working steps that the fellowship kind of offers you to suggest you to work on past situations. I didn't really see myself as having issues until I started doing those steps. And then I had to look at my past. I didn't really blame Grandpa for me using or drinking or anything like that. But I kind of didn't look at my past. I stopped at the point where we got married or hooked
Gotcha.
up.
I see.
And so when I started doing the steps and was able to look at my past, I realized that I had issues with alcohol long before I ever met him.
Okay.
There were quite a few instances of just like Grandpa said, wanting to fit in, wanting to be somebody that I really wasn't. And alcohol took me to that place. It gave me bravery. It gave me beauty. It gave me all of those things that I always wanted but didn't know how to get. And alcohol took me to those places.
Right.
There was one night that I was madly in love with this guy in high school. He was my very first love. I'll never forget him. I was in love with him. He wasn't in love with me. He liked me because I had a vehicle.
Yeah.
And I would go pick him up and take him places. And we never did anything. I don't even recall if we ever even kissed or not. But he was my true love. He was my love at that point.
Yeah.
And it was devastating to me that no matter what I did, he wouldn't love me back. And so he was a drummer in like this little group thing. It wasn't an important group, but important to him, I guess. And we were over to some people's house at a party, and he was playing the drums, and of course I was drinking. And my daddy was a fireman, and he told me, if I ever catch you following a fire truck or an ambulance or anything like that, I will kick your ass. You will be in deep shit. So I never did that. So we were at the house, we were drinking, we were all drunk. We heard these sirens, and it's like, let's go see what's going on. So we went, and some shed in the backyard of this house down the alley was on fire. Lo and behold, my daddy was there.
Oh, no.
I never got sober so fast in all my life. It was just like, oh, no, I'm not drunk. Oh, no way. They said, what the hell are you doing here? I thought I told you, get your ass home right now. We'll talk about this later. Yeah, that's not a fun situation. So I've never followed any fire trucks or ambulance or anything since then.
I learned your lesson.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
But it was, circumstances of doing that sometimes get you in deeper trouble than you're already in.
Right.
And I had to look at a lot of issues that brought me to the place where I was.
Yeah.
I didn't start doing drugs. I think I probably smoked my first joint, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 16.
Okay. Yeah, not too early.
And people were like, I was just like, what's the big deal? I don't feel anything. I don't know what's going on, and, but we were at a party and smoked a joint, and next thing I know, I was laying on the couch listening to this music. I could hear in the background going, yeah, she thinks she's not feeling this, but look at her, man. She is so wasted. And it's like, okay, whatever. So after that, it was no big deal.
Right.
But I didn't have alcohol in my home per se, but alcohol is only a symptom of the disease.
Right.
The disease is life, as to how you handle life. And looking back on my childhood, I see the dysfunction in my family without the alcohol. I can only imagine what it would have been like with alcohol.
I see.
My mom and dad, we were very religious back then. As a child, we went to church a lot. And my daddy was involved with the church, the Baptist church with us. He'd go to church with us. He'd do things during church and everything, and be very involved. And then about, I think when I was maybe 10, around there, it was like an overnight thing. He dropped the Baptist church and became a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh.
And that ripped my mom apart. We were always having Christmas and Easter and all of those things, and we didn't have that anymore.
Yeah.
He took all of that away from us. And my mind at that age was like, what did I do wrong to make this happen? So after that, they fought a lot. physically, and I guess emotionally. I would hear my mom crying at night, and didn't know for sure what was going on. I mean, I was 10, 11 maybe. I didn't know what was happening. I just heard her crying a lot. They were fighting a lot. Got very physical one time, and I don't think the cops got called. They should have, but I don't recall them being called. He had her in a headlock basically, and she picked up a big vase and tried to hit him over the head, but he had her down and she slung it, trying to sling it over her head to hit him, and it went crashing across the room and just shattered into zillions of pieces. And I'll never forget that one.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think he left that night. He never said goodbye. He was there one day and gone the next, and it was like, what happened here? I don't remember him ever saying goodbye.
No.
And that was, I think, the beginning of my probably trying to cover up the abandonment, maybe. The not being good enough, it being my fault this all happened. There was a lot of turmoil that happened. Alcohol did become an issue in our life at that time. Before my dad left, he brought this skanky bitch over to our house, and they would sit out in the backyard and drink and get drunk as a skunk.
Like a Jehovah's Witness does, right?
Yeah. And my mom was so desperate. I could see that she was so desperate to try and keep this marriage together that she joined in and started drinking as well, just to try to be a part of. And today I understand that. Then I didn't, but today I understand she was doing whatever she could to make it okay with herself as well as the relationship she was trying to hold on to. And I never saw any of that until I got into the fellowship and started doing the steps. You know, my life was good that I could see. There was nothing wrong, but yeah, it was fucked up.
Yeah.
It was really fucked up. So I got pregnant, first time I ever did anything in my whole life. My mother never explained to me what sex was, what love was, where babies came from, nothing. I knew nothing. I was the baby of 4 girls, but even my sisters, they never said anything to me about this is what happens. I was 17 years old and I had no clue where babies came from. I didn't know how they were made. I didn't know anything about that. I'd never been with a guy. I'd never seen a penis before.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know anything about this. So the first guy that actually showed me what I saw as love was, he wanted to have sex with me. So I knew he had to love me. You know, that was what my brain was telling me. Well, if he wants me that bad, he must love me. So I allowed it to happen. The first time I ever did anything in my life, I got pregnant with Amy.
Yeah.
That was devastating. I had choices to give her up. I had people that was willing to pay. I chose not to do that. That was my responsibility. I took it on myself. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. It wasn't his baby. Come to find out, just recently, Amy hooked back up with him, found him, and talked to him. He remembered me. I thought he was a couple years older than me. He was actually younger than me. He was like 15 or 16. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I guess it wasn't statutory rape because he wasn't older than me, and I wasn't older than, well, I was older than him, but I wasn't 18. So
No, you're 17. Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Statute of limitations too. You're fine.
yeah, I'm good. Anyway, yeah, that was. I stopped drinking, of course. I stopped smoking dope. I stopped doing all of that when I got pregnant with her. I got angry with my mom. I moved we lived in Dallas area back then, and I moved to Texas, to Amarillo with my dad, which was married to this skanky bitch that he brought to our house at the time.
Yeah.
And she had 4 young kids. My dad had just raised 4 kids, and he was stuck with these 4 little bratty, snot-nosed brats. And it was like, why would anybody want to do that?
That's crazy.
But she was crazy. She was a drunk, big time drunk. And she'd chase him around the house with a butcher knife. I think he ended up breaking her arm one time,
Holy
trying
shit.
to get the knife away from her. And, I mean, she was a wacko.
Yeah.
She's dead now, as far as I know. And so he found out. I didn't tell him I was pregnant. I was out riding a motorcycle, a dirt bike, and jumping hills and all that stuff, and having a good old time. She got nosy and got my suitcase, found some medication in there for, I don't even remember what it was for, yeast infection or something. And he asked me, "Are you pregnant?" And it was like, yes. And I got in big trouble for jumping on the dirt bike. And what the hell were you thinking? I don't know. I'm a kid. I don't know.
Right.
It was fun. So I got on the bus and went back home again because he kind of freaked out on me, and had the baby and lived with mom for a while. And I think drinking kind of ceased at that point. I was not really doing a whole lot of any kind of anything. I met my first husband. They lived in an apartment across from us. He was actually little Anna, my sister, that was 2 years older than me. She says she was dating him, but he was like, no, we're just friends. So she accused me of stealing her boyfriend.
Oh, geez.
He got all kinds of pissed off at me and blah, blah, blah. So he was living with family. I was living with family. We didn't want to be there anymore. I had a kid. I needed somebody to help me raise my kid. We got married out of convenience, basically, just so we could go and play house on our own. I don't know that I could really qualify him as an alcoholic. I mean, that's something you have to do on your own, basically. But he definitely loved his beer. He could go through a case of beer in a night with no problem. I never really saw him like drunk. He got, tipsy.
Right.
But I never really saw him belligerently drunk or anything of that nature. I drank occasionally back then. I think I started smoking dope again after that. We were only married a year and a half. And for my birthday, I asked him for a divorce. I wanted to go ahead and get out of the situation before we hated each other. I didn't really want to hate the guy, but I didn't want to live with him anymore.
Yeah.
So I packed all of our shit up in a little Toyota, put Amy in there, and we headed to Colorado Springs because that's where my sister Carol lived, and Anna was living there at the time. And got there in October. In part of October, I met Grandpa.
How'd you guys meet? I actually don't know if I know that story.
He was a friend of Carol's.
Okay.
So they kind of got introduced through that. I actually moved, well, I don't know that I could even say Gary was moved in with me. He was, Gary, his roommate at the time. Am I boring you?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're not boring me.
Gary, who Grandpa was in the Air Force with, I met him first, and he kind of came over and kind of stayed some nights with me for a while. And then I was at his house one time, and I saw letters and stuff like that to Danny, Daniel. And I was like, who's this Danny guy? I don't know who this is. And he showed up one night after work, and I was there, and it was like, oh my goodness, I kind of like him better than I do you. So he went in and was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he asked me if I wanted one. I said, sure. So he made me a sandwich, and then I think we kissed, and then he came home with me, and he hasn't left. So that's almost 47 years ago. Well,
Wow.
I guess it is 47 years that we met,
Yeah,
but it'll be 47 years that we're married in January.
that's remarkable.
Yeah, it is remarkable. We've
Uh-huh.
been through a lot of shit in our 47 years. I started drinking, of course, and using all kinds of drugs and acid and black beauties and you name it, purple
what's
mescaline.
What's a black beauty? I don't even know.
Speed.
Okay, gotcha.
They were very popular back then, and they were
see.
fantastic. If you wanted to lose weight or get your house cleaned, pop a black beauty.
That sounds about right.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we used together for our first 15 years of marriage.
Yeah.
I pretty much stopped doing drugs, smoking marijuana. It became an issue for me. Did some paranoia and some heart palpitation type things to me. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I stopped smoking, but I continued drinking, doing things occasionally.
Yeah.
And it just became a problem in our lives. I mean, we would push our kids off into their rooms, go to your room. We wouldn't allow their friends to come over because our house smelled like pot most of the time, or if there was something laying around. We didn't want kids to get nosy and go home and tell their parents, oh, well, they were smoking
Right.
pot and blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot of issues with that because the kids really got pissed off at us because we wouldn't let their friends come over. We wouldn't let them come over and spend the night. There was just all kinds of crap going on.
Right.
We've had our moments in our marriage to where occasionally somebody had to go away for a while, but they always seem to come back eventually.
Yeah.
Grandpa got a little intense on his drinking and smoking dope. He would do it at work, stand on the toilet and blow it through the vent so anybody showed up at work, they wouldn't smell it.
Right.
It just got kind of out of control.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so when he finally decided he wanted to do something different, it was a joy to me. I was ready for it.
Yeah.
But he had to be ready for himself before it could happen. And that's how this fellowship works, is that you can't tell anybody, hey, dude, you might want to take care of this situation or whatever. You can suggest it to them or something, but you can't say, you're a fucking alcoholic, you need to go to AA.
Yeah.
It's a personal thing. Everybody is on their own, basically. You can always be there for them, but it's their own their own thing that they have to do for themselves to get to where they need to be.
Right.
And sometimes it takes them a while, and unfortunately, sometimes people have to die. They say in the book, jails, institutions, and death. And that's the three things that happen if you don't get your shit together. Those are guaranteed. One of those things, if not all three, are going to work in your life. And this fellowship has been a very important life change for both of us. I was able to, I started in Al-Anon when Grandpa was in treatment. The guy that was kind of the clergy, or the, what's the word I want to use? Yeah, the advisor or something of the treatment facility. He talked to us about this being a family disease, which it is. It doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone that you come in contact with. So he said it's probably a good idea to put the kids in Alateen, for you to go to Al-Anon. I didn't have a problem back then. I did not see myself having a problem, other than the fact that I was an enabler. I was a codependent. I enabled him to continue doing what he was doing, and I continued doing what I was doing, not looking at me having an issue. So I went to Al-Anon for 3 years. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I learned a lot about myself. Al-Anon is for people that need to go and get in contact with their own spiritual self, not necessarily try and fix the alcoholic in your life, but to fix yourself to be okay with the alcoholic in your life. And so that started me on the journey of spirituality and individuality of myself. And it helped me become a stronger person, to be able to deal with situations in my life. So after about 3 years, I started going to AA meetings with Grandpa on a regular basis, just basically to keep the bitches away from him.
Were you drinking in those 3 years prior when you're
Yes.
going? You are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I was drinking the whole time in Al-Anon because I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't have any problems. I could drink. He can't, but I didn't drink a lot at home. I mainly drank out in public situations. I went out with the girls. I drank at the bar with the girls.
Yeah.
And I think I did have wine occasionally at home. Don't remember for sure. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yes, I was still drinking.
Okay.
And so I started going to meetings with him. I started doing the step work. I started looking at my past and what had begun from there. And my sponsor at the time questioned me on that when I was talking to you about not looking at my past before I met Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
She says, why don't you have anything in your fourth step about what happened to you in your earlier days as like teenagers and stuff like that? And it was like, oh, I don't know. I didn't see myself back then. So I really had to focus on that and see. And that's when I realized that, yeah, I had a drinking problem. I had a living problem long before I ever met him. And so I decided, yeah, I think I'm probably in the right program, but the wrong program. So that's when I switched over to the AA fellowship. We actually started NA when we first started.
Right. Okay.
And it was more, it fit more our age group, I think, more than anything else. And it dealt a lot of the issues of drugs, which that was pretty much what we were doing back then. Not so much, I mean, alcohol is a drug, it's a liquid drug, but we used it when we couldn't find anything else.
Okay.
So it didn't seem to be as big of a problem back then. Plus, all of the AA people that we always knew were old farts, grumpy old farts.
Yeah.
It was like we weren't there yet. So after a while, after Grandpa went out and did his thing, which he was out for 2.5 years or whatever, and I had no idea. I had no idea he was out drinking.
Really?
I think the Al-Anon part was able to teach me about, what's the word I want to use? Detachment. It allowed me to detach from him enough to where I didn't even notice that he was doing what he was doing. He was kind of sneaky too. He's been sneaky all of his life, but he was really sneaky back then.
Yeah.
And after finding out that he had been out using, I could see instances of things that happened that I questioned at the moment, but let it pass on by like, he's just tired. He's just grumpy.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my God, he was fucking drunk. And I didn't even put it together. So that was kind of like eye-opening for me. It took me a while to get his trust back and not walk on eggshells, or if he went into another room or went outside, what is he doing? Is he out there drinking again? Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, we went to counseling. She advised him to get his ass back to meetings. He thought she was going to talk about me, about, being sick. And she was like, no, fucker, you're the sick one. Get your ass back to meetings where you belong and stop doing this bullshit or you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to get back in heavily into the fellowship, become involved, start doing service work, start helping others, start sponsoring people, just being a part of. And our life changed. I don't know if you read the promises in the big book or not.
I don't know if I read the promises section.
64, 83.
Oh wait, I did. Yeah, I did read that. Yeah, hold on. Let me go to it right now. Yeah, because I read Grandpa told me to start at if we are painstaking about this phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I did read that section. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, those have so much come true in our life today. It was devastating when Grandpa was diagnosed with cancer. It's like, we're doing everything right here.
Yeah.
What is going on, I don't understand. It took me a while I had to go out in the desert and yell at God and say, what the fuck is going on? Why are you doing this? And the God I grew up with in the church was a very vengeful God. He was out to get me. If I sinned, per se, he basically would hurt someone I loved, not necessarily me, but someone else. And I hated that God. He was very scary. And I was able to find another God of my understanding when I came into the fellowship, a spiritual God who loves me no matter what. And it's not a religious God. He's not out to get me. And the God that I went back to when Grandpa was diagnosed was my old God. And I had to basically kill that God.
Yeah.
He's not in my life anymore. I still don't totally understand what is going on, but I see today it's none of my business.
Yeah.
I just have to do what is right for me and what's right for Grandpa,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just be okay with where I'm at. Sometimes that's really difficult. And sometimes it's just okay. Damn you.
Oh shit, Grandma. Yeah. I
So,
no, I think your spiritual journey has actually been one that has affected me and impacted me probably the most out of anybody I know. Um, just hearing you talk at certain times, you're just very in touch with it, and I know it can hurt sometimes to be in touch with it, but I think your devotion to kind of understanding your own spirituality has really made you into a really strong person, at least from what I've seen. But you've been around a lot longer than I
yes, I have.
have.
I
But
try. There are good days, there are bad days. My spirituality is very good on some days, and some days it's not worth shit.
yeah,
Um, but all we have is right now, this moment, and I try very hard to stay in the moment, because I can take it way far out there, and I have Grandpa already dead. I try to figure out what I'm going to do when he's dead. I don't want to go there. I want to be here right now while he's alive and do everything I can in my power to be strong and loving and supportive. And I can't do that if I go out in the future.
right.
So staying in the moment is important for me today.
Absolutely.
That's all I've got.
Yeah.
And that's my story, and I'm sticking to
Uh, right on. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that perspective and outlook on life, I mean, that helps anybody, but it seems to be also a very big part of the fellowship is not worrying about shit you can't control, and not looking too far ahead, and understanding your past but not judging yourself too much for it. I think all that's applicable to what you're going through right now too.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to, if you both wouldn't mind, I kind of wanted to just read out loud through the 12 steps.
Okay.
And then if at any point you guys want to cut me off or have some input about it, and then I just want to talk about those steps and then some quotes from it, just because if you guys have any advice or anything like that you'd want to give to anyone else dealing with this or just dealing with life in general, because I think a lot of these lessons can be applied to anybody, whether they're in recovery or not.
Exactly. And like I said,
There's some technical difficulties right here. We had a little jump cut, but let's get back into it.
Hello?
hello,
Hey, oh, whoa, there you are.
am I good?
Yeah, you are all good now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I just kind of goofed around for a minute.
Okay, right on, right on. Yeah, it was so weird.
Okay.
It sounded like you were in like a cyber chase tunnel like 1,000 miles away, all like fractally echoey sounding.
Huh.
Weird.
Weird.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I'm glad we are all good. That was about, I was like, damn, we hour in, we were doing so good.
I know.
I'll let you guys go soon. I'm sorry. Thank you for doing this.
That's fine.
But you guys have a lot of great advice. You've been in the fellowship for a long time. So just on the off chance.
I just celebrated 33 years the other day on the 14th.
Right on. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is great. That blows my mind. That's amazing.
It blows my mind.
Great. Yeah, I'll just go through them. Cut me off at any point if you want to put any insight in or say something about your favorite, your hardest, whatever. But
Okay.
here are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn over our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take moral inventory, and when we were wrongly, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of will for us and the power to carry that out. And finally, 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Correct.
Yeah. So I was just kind of curious. Were any of those steps harder or easier, or does it all kind of come together, or like did any one specific part of the journey affect you, either of you, most?
Well, it works best if we work the steps in order and work all of them. The first, well, the whole idea is clean house, trust God, and help others. So actually, you start off working on the steps that help us begin to trust God. It was no doubt in my mind that I'm powerless over alcohol. I start drinking, I can't stop because of the physical allergy and the mental compulsion. But the second step was the one that gave me the most hope in the world. It's like, I came back to the fellowship and it's like, it didn't work before. Why am I here again? Well, they fanned a little teeny flame of hope, and I thought I could do this. And I've learned how to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Sometimes it's real quick. Sometimes I got to get dragged kicking and screaming into that part. I wasn't pleasantly enthralled with the fourth and the fifth step, where I had to write down all the shitty things I did and share them with someone else. But one of the things I always try to tell the guys I sponsor them is, you got to write all that stuff down, because that's cleaning house. And when you get done cleaning house, you need to know that I did all those things. And they were crappy, and some of them were really crappy. But I don't do those things anymore today. I'm cleaning house. And it's a freedom step. It gives you a lot of freedom from yourself. 6 and 7 are ongoing, when we deal with our character defects. And 8 and 9, we have an opportunity to go find those people that we fucked over. And we get to tell them, I fucked you over. And some of them are like, yeah, I appreciate you coming over and saying you fucked me over. Other people are like, take a swing at you on the doorstep. You're not coming in my goddamn house. I never want to see your fucking face again. And then the 10th and 11th and 12th steps are pretty much what we call the maintenance steps. That's how I keep up with the day on the 10th. And I love the 11th step. I call it, we can have our cake and eat it too step, because I get to pray to my God for knowledge of his will for us. And then I had to ask him for the power to carry that out. I just finally realized that the 11th step starts off with the part about dealing with communication with that God. And that's how I do my friendships, I want to know a little bit about you before I want to deal with you on a regular basis. But I'm trying to continue to do that. Meditation is a difficult thing for probably everybody, except a few really guru kind of people. But I get to kick back and do some prayer and meditation, and I get answers that I couldn't come up with on my own. God is doing for me today what I couldn't do for myself. God is doing today for me what alcohol stopped doing for me well. And then, of course, the 12 steps reaching out, helping everybody we can, because it's a substitution program. I substitute drinking alcohol with getting out of my damn self and being nice to And it's really weird how that works. There's so many dilemmas in this program that just don't make any sense. Why would helping somebody else make me better? Because I'm not thinking about me. There's a saying in AA that says, I may not be much, but I'm all I think about all the time. Well, that's not so much the case anymore. But
Yeah.
Clean house, trust God, and help others.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know
actually.
if you have Go ahead.
No, sorry. I was gonna say, I actually, in one of the sections you recommended, which it was in the into action portion, but it sounds like you're calling it the promises section. 85. I actually, page 85, right, talks about prayer and meditation, and I actually made a note to ask you guys about that because I've heard you talk about it before, and I know this section meant a lot to you. So that's cool. That's perfect. I think prayer and meditation are hard for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prayer to me is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
So that works for me. I'm
Yeah.
not the best on meditation, but I can get quiet within myself today, which didn't used to happen. I've never been one that's really, my brain goes constantly like Grandpa's does, and he can't shut us down. It just doesn't happen that way. Today I can sit quietly within myself and be okay with that and listen to what God is trying to tell me. And that's good for me. And I see the first three steps as I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And that works for me too. So
I can't wait. I can't.
I
think I'll
can't,
let 'em-
I can't, he can, I think I'll let him.
Okay. I like
That's
that.
the first three steps.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, fourth step is a very important step. I think a lot of people fear it because they have to finally look at themselves as to what has happened in their past. It's like Grandpa said, it's a freeing step. You get rid of all the guilt and the shame and the remorse and all of the crap that was inside of you that you keep inside that a lot of people drink over. They don't want to feel it, so therefore they cover it up with alcohol. And then they don't have to feel it for that period of time anyway. So it's a very freeing step to be able to release that from the inside of you. And a lot of people in the fellowship talk about journaling, which I don't know if you do or not. With being a journalist, you might write a lot, but it is very important for you to get all of that shit out of the inside of you. And sometimes journaling is a very good way to do that, whether it makes sense or not. It just sponsees that I've sponsored in my past, they have a really hard time with, I don't know what to write. It's like, just write whatever comes to your brain, whether it makes sense or not. Just write it down, and eventually something will come out that's just like, oh crap, okay, I understand why I was feeling that way. I understand why I smelt something today and it brought back shit from the past. You know, I understand I saw something today and I couldn't figure out why it took me into a place I didn't enjoy being in. You know, so it's surprising what your brain will connect on the end of your fingers when you start writing stuff.
Yeah.
And what sense it makes after the fact. So journaling, I think, is very important. I'm not preaching, and I'm not saying I do it. I've done it. I don't do it today. I probably should. I'm not going to shit all over myself. I'm not going to shame myself or feel guilty about it. But it might be a good idea if I started. It may help me feel a little bit better about situations in my life today if I were to get it out of the inside of me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then the fifth step is very scary because it talks about sharing it with another human being. It's like, oh, I'm not sharing this shit with nobody. You know, I've kept it inside all this time. I'll share it with my God because, you know, it's no big deal to do that, but share it with another person. What will they think? You know? But you'd be surprised at how many people out there have done so many more crazy things than you've ever thought of even doing in your life. So they just they just kind of look at you like, okay, that's all. So it's, you know, it's a freeing step, and it's a very important step in the fellowship to be able to get to that place.
Absolutely.
Something's just really crazy about my first fifth step. I did the fourth step back in the mid '86, and I had a sponsor that was a federal guy, so I gave him my fifth step up in his office, and then he told me, "Well, I'm moving to New Orleans this weekend," and immediately the thought came to my head, "I just told you a whole bunch of shit. I hope a fucking semi runs you over on the way to New Orleans, so nobody will ever know I'm not crappy like that anymore."
No, I'd be pissed too, honestly.
Yeah, I've listened to a number of fifth steps from sponsees and stuff, and I mean, you could hold a gun to my head and ask me what they said, and I can't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
And this fellowship is a trusting fellowship to where I've been shit on before. I've shared things with people, and then I hear it through the grapevine of what I said to them, and it's like, what the fuck? That's why this is called an anonymous program.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to really be a trusting person and kind of feel out the person you're sharing with.
Right.
Some people I know, I'm not sharing shit with you. And others, I could share anything I wanted to and know it was not going to go any further.
Right. Yeah, I remember I was reading because I read some more in the book, and I was just looking up because I was very curious about it. And I read that members were actually very upset when they published Bill's full name, like in his obituaries.
Yeah.
A lot of them wanted him just be known as Bill W. or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, I think we can pretty much wrap pretty soon. Thank you so much. This was very eye-opening, and you know, I don't plan on being sober anytime soon, but I think this book is a remarkable book to help anybody with life issues. Quite frankly, I mean, it's kind of a self-help book for anybody who's looking for help, just finding some discipline and some structure in their lives. But I just wanted to see before we go, if either of you have any advice or any thing you'd say to anybody who is looking to start the program, continue, or just better themselves in general.
I'm sorry, I had to answer another call and I didn't hear that last part of what you were saying.
No worries.
We have a mouse on our house and we have an exterminator coming out now. It's just him to tell me he won't be out until after 2 o'clock. So
No problem.
you said something about a buddy is doing something?
No. I just wanted to see before we go, just if either or both of you had anything, any kind of little bit of advice or guidance you would want to give to anybody either looking to start the program, continue it, or just looking to better themselves in general in life.
Well, basically, don't drink and go to meetings. Call somebody if you feel like drinking, especially before you drink, and get into the big book, start working the steps, get a sponsor, do everything from the basics of what they tell you to do. We talk about when you walk into the rooms, we give you like a toolbox, not literally, but a toolbox of this is the basics of if you don't ever want to drink again, one day at a time, here's a toolbox with as many tools as you can possibly have. It's up to you as to whether you're going to open the toolbox and use them. We're here for you. Open it up, give us a call. We'll do whatever we can to help you out. And that's basically what the fellowship is all about. Grandpa has a lot of pamphlets that he got for you that he's going to put in the mail, I think, to send
thank
to
you.
different things about the AA fellowship and how to get involved and what it's all about. And I'll let him talk to you.
Actually, if you want to go to aa.org,
Okay.
they have pamphlets and books and all that stuff on the page.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'll look that up.
There's kind of an interesting one that I didn't get from the lady last night. It talks about what AA is and what AA isn't. And I forget what the name of it is, but it might help identify some of the aspects of the program that certainly will help alcoholics. But sometimes if people are dealing with life issues, it would help them too, but it may or may not be something that AA would help. They might feel like, well, I never got a DUI. I never fell on my face and being too drunk. So they would probably benefit more from a $150 an hour sponsor, like a counselor, and learn how to deal with that stuff. But we're not supposed to judge people, but we do. Number one, can I trust you? Are you going to tell the stories about me outside? But we do judge. And I can't tell anybody they're an alcoholic, but I can sure think they are. And when they decide they are, then I get to help them as much as I can. And
Right.
That's the only thing I think that, I mean, there are so many versions of the 12-step program that have come out. Overeaters Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Marijuana Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous. These are all issues that we're powerless over, and they make our lives unmanageable. But if you don't have the thing that you're powerless over listed in an anonymous program, it may or may not be very much help to you. But if you do, it will help. I believe that wholeheartedly. You just have to want it more than you wanted things before. And as messed up as things got for me twice in my life, I don't want that anymore. I want to be sober. I want to be emotionally sober. I want to be functionally sober. And I want to help my fellows. So
That's great.
it. Joe,
yeah, go to
should be called
aa.org.
Life's Anonymous.
Could.
Wait, what'd you say?
Should be called Life's Anonymous.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea. I'm down for the rebranding. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I heard on a meeting this morning that life gets lifey.
Life gets lifey.
The first time I ever heard that one.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna
Yeah.
use that. Right
Shit
on.
happens and it is what it is, but I like life gets lifey.
Yeah. That one's a good one. That needs a t-shirt, hats. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. This was super interesting. You guys are great talkers. So thank you so much. I love you. I will definitely be calling you guys again soon, probably bugging you with more questions like this, but also to just say hi.
Yeah, well, I like to just say hi part, and it doesn't bug me to talk.
Right on.
It's an important thing in my life.
Yeah.
It's important in Ricky's too.
It is my life.
Yeah.
I don't mind talking about my life.
Good.
What it is.
So thankful they took their time to have such a touching conversation, quite frankly. I really love that one. I'll be back next week with an episode of Fickle Future. As always, thanks for listening. 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 Thanks for listening.